President Obama has called Russia's President Medvedev, offering U.S. help in fighting those wildfires in the country. Several U.S. agencies and the state of California are flying firefighting equipment to Russia. The fires there and a drought have slammed farmers, hurting agricultural output. Joining us this morning is Chris Osborne, CEO of Troika Dialog, Russia's oldest and largest private investment bank. We're trying to get some perspective here on just what these acts of God, these natural disasters are doing, specifically to Russia here. HSBC was out there saying this is going to impact GDP in a substantial way. When you look at the picture of Russia and the flames and the smoke and the smog in Moscow, it can look very intimidating. What's the reality?
Well, the images are truly apocalyptic, and just if you think for a moment, people with no air conditioning, you have kind of a choice of either opening the window to get some relief from the heat, or closing it to keep out the smoke, and those are bad choices. In terms of the real impact on the economy, I think what the HSBC economist was saying, 15 billion, which would be a 1% hit to GDP. At Troika, we think it's early to come out with any firm guesses on what the hit will be. There will certainly be a drag on the economy. 20% of retail spending is in Moscow. One of the difficulties is that August is, the same as in France. August is a very slow work month in Russia anyway. So this is just one of the.
So those drops in trading volumes that we've been hearing about, you're saying, give the perspective that this is a light summer month anyhow.
It's just very difficult to separate. I mean, we'll know later what the impact is going to be.
These have also been fatal. We've seen reports of more than between 700 and 1,000 people who died for things related to smoke inhalation and the fires. I mean, gauge for me here how much of a political problem this could be, and then by extension bleed into the financial health of the country.
Well, I think it's a political challenge for both Putin and Medvedev. They have their rankings in the polls have suffered recently. They were dropping off even before the fires, and you can see by the activity, the PR activity of Putin, for example, getting behind the. We
have those pictures of him in the cockpit, personally putting out fires.
Personally putting out fires. At least that's that's obviously to address the polls and to for the people to see the government as being in action and personally involved in these fires.
We're looking at those pictures of Putin getting aboard that plane, obviously cameras in tow, to your point. But we've seen so many regions of the country talk about the cost, the drought damages, not even addressing the fires there. When we look at the Russian economy, we hear so often about oil, we hear about gas. Put in perspective the other commodities here. How important are they to this country?
Well, agricultural production overall is 4% of GDP, and that's why we think it's a little premature. And there's a tendency to exaggerate just because the images are so horrific. There's a tendency to kind of emotionally respond with estimates.
Do you think that 15 billion that HSBC puts on it is an over-exaggeration?
It could be. On the other hand, for all we know, the impact could be more. I think what they did is they broke that down in terms of 0.6% was the agricultural production loss, and 0.4% was related kind of industrial losses due to loss of work days. I don't know where they get their figures. I think it is probably an educated guesstimate. On CPI or inflation, there certainly will be an impact, but it's important to keep the big picture in mind here. We have an end-of-year CPI year-on-year figure of 5.5%. That's lower than some other people's estimates. If the hit to CPI really is 1%, as some analysts have suggested, we'll still be looking at 6.5%, which will still be the lowest figure in post-Soviet Russian history.
Now, as we look at the question of global growth slowing down, certainly that seems to be the indication out of China, out of the UK, out of the US. What does that do to the overall Russia story? Where are they finding growth?
Well, growth is actually coming from the non-oil sector, and the evidence for that is that tax revenues are up significantly over the Ministry of Finance projections, and those are coming from the non-oil sector. The reason we know that is that the oil price is relatively the same. Production is up, but it's not up that much. So the tax revenues have to be coming from the non-oil sector. Okay. Just one example, Magnet, which is a food retailing network, year-on-year, top line for 7 months 2010 is up 45%.
And that trades publicly?
That does trade publicly in London.
In London. All right. A name for you there. Thank you, Chris, for giving us your perspective. I know you were just in Russia about 3 weeks ago, so fresh look there. Thank you.
You're welcome.